So earlier this year, I did a video where I said that the MAGA movement was the American Taliban. And that really pissed people off. And I still have people to this very day that will leave comments on that video. And they'll say, how dare you make such a comparison? How dare you make such an extreme comparison? Why would you go to such an extreme just to try to prove a point? Well, it got me to thinking about a lot of things, because I had a listener recently send me a message, and in it she said something that really stuck out to me. She said people should feel safe when talking about religion. They should feel safe when they're debating religion. And she's right, they should. We should be able to ask questions about religion and to debate religion and feel safe in doing so. But the problem is, when you're brought up in church, you're brought up to never question it. You're brought up to never question your preacher, never question your youth pastor, never question your Sunday school teacher, never question your parents, never question the Bible. And if you do, they will tell you that you're thinking in the carnal mind and that you need to get into a spiritual mind and start thinking more like them. And they will also tell you that their brand, with their stamp of approval, is the only way that you can get to heaven, and they warn you to never study other religions, to never look at any other religion or any other way of thinking, because those are all false gods. And you're not supposed to have no other gods before me. So those are all false gods. We have the real God. Don't you guys go over there and start studying them. And what I was simply pointing out in my older video was that the MAGA movement and the Taliban have way more in common than they ever really thought. Because tell me something, where does MAGA stand on gay and trans rights? Where does the Taliban stand? Where does MAGA stand on abortion rights and women's rights? Where does the Taliban stand? Where does MAGA stand on the church controlling the state? Where does the Taliban stand on that issue? If they sat down and started talking to one another, they would realize they're both really wanting the same thing, just in the name of different gods. And they get really upset at me for pointing that out. And I know what a lot of the rebuttals are going to be. Yeah, but we're not beheading people in the streets. No, but go read the manifestos of so many of these mass shooters and see what they're saying. Go read 9 out of 10 of them and see who it was they was listening to. See who it was they was believing in. I know you're going to throw up the one, and I'm not even going to give it the time of day, but I know you're going to throw up that one at me and say, well, did you read it? Yeah, I read the rest of them too. And there was way more of them influenced by MAGA ideology. So, I said that I called them kissing cousins. That pissed people off. But it all goes back to Abraham and his 2 sons. He had Ishmael and he had Isaac. Now, supposedly, the way the story goes is that God had promised him and his wife Sarah a son. And he told him, just be patient, and you will give birth and you will have a child. And Abraham, according to the Bible, he decided to go ahead and basically have a child with one of his maids. And so she birthed a son named Ishmael. That displeased God. And then God still ended up giving him a son with Sarah called Isaac. And it all goes back to that moment. It all goes back to Muslims believe in Ishmael and Christians believe in Isaac. So, there's so many similarities between the two. And if you would actually not be afraid and just ask the tough questions and not be afraid and just study the other religions, you will find that a whole lot of them have more in common. And there's sometimes just little small things dividing them on certain issues. It's not as far apart as you think. And they both produce the same type of thinking, which is don't question what it is we're saying. Only believe in what we're saying and only believe in our brand. Well, I grew up, and from the time I was old enough to ask a question, I did. And I asked questions until I was removed from Sunday school. And I sat there and listened to the preacher following along in my Bible until he went so far off script and jumped the shark so bad that I couldn't sit there anymore. I couldn't have it on my conscience. I didn't want to be guilty by association. And people says, well, Brando, why did you do that? What'd you do? Did you go out here and did you read some, Did you read some atheist books? No. No, I was reading the Bible and I was listening to how they interpreted it. I was listening to them. It was them that turned me away. It was them that turned me off. Yeah, once I got away from it, yeah, I picked up books by Christopher Hitchens. Yeah, I picked up books by Sam Harris after that. But that's not what made me walk away. What made me walk away was a guy standing up there holding this book in his hand and using it to demonize people he disagreed with and telling me that I couldn't ask a question. And when I got him too far in the corner, he would say, well, you're just thinking in the flesh now. You got to get in that spirit. You need to pray about it. Let me pray with you. In other words, let me just keep brainwashing you until you keep your mouth shut. Well, that's not how it should be. We should always ask the tough questions. We should always make the tough, uncomfortable comparisons. And we should never be afraid to see how the rest of the world is believing, because I'm telling you, you can say all day that the OM people over there, man, they're extreme, man. Those people over there, they got some extreme ideas. They're not at all far away from the extreme stuff you're believing in yourself.